Welcome back, guys, to CFL Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have our first of the 2023, the 110th Grey Cup playoffs. That will
kick off.
That will conclude in Hamilton for Grey Cup 110. I am very excited. This is the first time that Rick has been a part of the CFL crew for this experience. How are you feeling, Rick?
Well, considering that we have like 4 or 5 bands playing that week.
Yeah, look at that, and you're gonna be right in the thick of it. So you got all that, and so starting this off, we have our first game of the CFL playoffs this year, the Eastern semifinal, out in Montreal. It is the visiting Hamilton Tiger Cats versus the hometown Montreal Alouettes. Now, this is going to be a very, very interesting game because the season series does not look good for Hamilton. It doesn't. However, there are some asterisks with that, which is injuries, and Hamilton looks pretty healthy now, which means that this is going to be, I guess what Ticats fans hope for, a different Hamilton Tiger Cats. Now, another question I have, actually, Rick, I don't know if you know the answer to this. How many of those games were in the Tommy Condell era Hamilton Tiger Cats?
The Montreal versus
yes.
Hamilton?
Because if 2 of those games were, then that's another big thing as well. I know at least one of them was under Scott Milanovich, which is now actually being considered for the Saskatchewan Roughriders head coaching job. But he's not there yet. He's still in Hamilton as the offensive coordinator. And so I'm curious to see.
So 2 of them.
So that actually benefits Hamilton then. Because that means that this new and improved offense, the Alouettes, they've gotten a taste of once, again, with injury problems. And one thing I'm going to find very interesting here is that the Alouettes got to deal with the defensive line here that the Ticats have put forward that has been able to do a lot better as of recently. And the Ticats have kind of been similar a little bit to the Calgary Stampeders in the regard of that that they've kind of had a bit of a resurgence where they had some good times here, they had a lot of bad times. Wasn't going the way they hoped, but then they had a little bit of a resurgence, and then they found themselves in a playoff spot. So if you're the Hamilton Tiger Cats, that's what you look for. Now, on the other side of things, if you're the Montreal Alouettes, you are 3-0 against these guys. You do not want your one loss against these guys to be the only one that matters, because this is the game that matters. Those 3 were just to determine seeding, to just determine, where you were going to end up. This is the road to the Grey Cup. This is the Grey Cup playoffs. This is all that matters. So you want to be able to get it done. If you're the Montreal Alouettes, shut down. You need that offensive line to play shutdown football. You cannot be letting your quarterback get sacked 1,000 times a game, which has been a little bit of a theme there in Montreal.
51 to be exact.
51 times this season, not what you're hoping for. Although, not going to lie, I thought it would be funny if Fajardo somehow got sacked more times this year than he did last year, considering last year he got absolutely abused, seemingly, behind his offensive line. How many was it? It was in like the 70s, wasn't it?
77 to be exact.
That's fucking crazy. But yeah, no, a big thing of note here for the Ticats is I don't think the Alouettes have faced Matthew Schiltz, I believe. I could be wrong here. I think they faced Taylor Powell at least twice. I don't know if they've really, and if they've gotten Matthew Schiltz, how much of it have they gotten? I feel like they haven't gotten a lot.
The last time Condell was in,
yep,
it was Powell, and then week 3 was Schiltz.
Oh, it was Schiltz? Did he play the majority?
But that's when Schiltz threw. That's when Schultz threw for 345 yards.
Okay, so not even a bad game for Schultz. I think Schultz will be a big factor in this game. He didn't really touch a field last week in that final game. They really gave that mostly to Taylor Powell. And one of the things I mentioned in the preview for last week that was very important for that week was ensuring that both teams don't show their hand, in the sense of they're about to play the most important game against each other. And what is one of the biggest tools for football players? Film. Don't give them all your specialty plays. Don't give them players that they can get used to. Make it so that the other team is going in as blind as possible. And so for the Alouettes, I think this goes for the Ticats too. I think both teams have done a good job at kind of keeping their cards, just kind of keeping those cards in, not revealing too many of their hands. So that way, even though obviously the Ticats are going to look at film that the Alouettes of them playing other games, the Alouettes are going to look at film of the Ticats playing other games to know exactly what to expect. There's a difference between knowing what to expect and actually having experienced it. And then I think that's going to be a big factor here in this game. Now, for the Alouettes, what is the big hope here? The big hope is that you get past this, that you get to the East Final. They were not able to get it done. Were they able to get? Did Hamilton? Didn't Hamilton play Toronto last year, or am I mistaken?
No, it was Montreal.
Oh, it was Montreal. Okay, my apologies. No, I sometimes forget. If you're the Alouettes, then the big thing is you got last year to you got to Toronto, got to the East Final, couldn't get it done. Toronto goes on, wins a Grey Cup. Toronto, an amazing season they have this year. It's one of those things where if you're the Montreal Alouettes, step one is getting back to that game, and step two is changing the narrative and being the underdog and making a huge upset. But they have to get through Hamilton first, and even though Hamilton's had a lot of things go wrong for them this year. They are still they are a formidable opponent to the Alouettes, absolutely. And I think that the Ticats are a little bit of a sleeper pick here, just with the potential that they do have on the roster, and the fact that whenever they lost games, a lot of times the loss wasn't always just because the team wasn't capable of it or a lack of talent. There was a lot of other factors in there, whether that was injuries, whether that, whatever it was. But there was other stuff.
Not only that, but you also have to remember, last week's game was a shit game. Who really counts that game?
Yeah, this is exactly what I said. Neither team was showing their cards in that regard, so it really meant nothing.
The two games is Condell, so you really haven't seen what Milanovic can do. Just to let you know, so they open up. I don't know if you're much into betting. Montreal is the 3.0 point favorites right now.
I see.
Against Hamilton. So Hamilton's the underdogs.
Well, it absolutely makes sense that the Alouettes are the Alouettes are the favorite to win this game. They totally are. I'm just saying is that despite what you see online, this is going to be a very close game. This could absolutely go either way. And it's one of those things where if you're the Alouettes, it's ensuring that you don't fall into that hole. Ensuring that you don't fall into that hole of, we beat them 3 times, not going to be a problem. We're just going to do it again. But making sure that you have that confidence, but not that overconfidence, where it blinds your judgment. As you know, we've seen that happen with Montreal, where they've had some games where should have been a little bit of an easy win, but maybe wasn't as easy as possible. But then they've also gone the other way. Like I remember they had a game against. They've had 2 games against Ottawa, and it went completely different ways. In one game, they won, and they barely scraped past them because they completely underestimated the Dustin Cum Red Blacks, as the Red Blacks were pretty hot at this point in the season. But then they also had another game where they played the Red Blacks, and they just stomped all over them the way that they could, and the way that their position in the standings that they honestly should. And so it's one of those things where the Alouettes, it's just going to be really, really important that they're getting the mentalities right when they go into this game and that they're properly prepared. And they got a week to do that, and so I'm curious to see how that goes. How about yourself, Rick?
So, I'm just going through a few things here. Depending on how it goes between Montreal and Hamilton, I want to say quarterback-wise, both teams are pretty much even.
Yep, that's fair.
Fajardo did throw 3,700. We'll say 38 if you round up 8 yards. But he also threw 12 interceptions and sacked 51 times.
Yep, I think
Hamilton, we didn't throw that many touchdowns, but we had at least 5 interceptions per quarterback.
Yep.
Then if you go to rushing yards, I want to say I'm going to give the rushing to Hamilton.
Yeah, it's funny because if we're looking at the Alouettes, I think William Stanback is absolutely capable. We just haven't seen the William Stanback this season that I think if you're the Alouettes that you're hoping for. And so it's one of those things where if you're the Alouettes, you're really hoping to get that running game going in a way that you haven't really been able to this season. If you're Hamilton, you want to keep James Butler moving. And when it comes to the quarterback sort of thing, I find this very interesting, as I think Cody Fajardo has done the best of any of the individual quarterbacks in this equation. However, I think past Cody Fajardo, I think you run into some real problems with the Alouettes. And the interesting thing about Hamilton is they kind of have a few different options, I think Matthew Schultz is going to be a key piece there. Obviously, Bo Levi Mitchell is going to be a key piece. Taylor Powell, if need be, is not an awful option. I think that's the thing. The third string for the Ticats, I think, is better than the second and third string and fourth string for the Alouettes. So it's one of those things where it's difficult because I think that the Ticats have the same level of talent at quarterback. It's just kind of spread amongst a few different players, and so I think it'll be really interesting to see how. Because, obviously the Alouettes are going to be playing Cody Fajardo, but I'm curious to see how the Ticats manage their quarterback situation. Are you going to be playing Bo Levi Mitchell the whole game? Are you going to play him half a game? Are you going to play him a quarter like you did in that one game and have Matthew Schultz take over for a bit? Are you going to just kind of rotate them in and out here and there and keep the Alouettes on their toes? I think that there's a lot of interesting ways Scott Milanovich can play this, and I think that Scott Milanovich's play calling, and if he's able to really pull in clutch for the Ticats, I think will all the more push the Saskatchewan Roughriders to seriously look at bringing this guy in at the head coaching position. Again, not at this point in time, afterwards, but I think the Riders are considering it, and I think if anything, Scott Milanovich has an opportunity to add some stuff to his resume, maybe tick up that dollar sign with really good performance.
The only thing that is even,
yep.
If you look at the numbers between the Alouettes receivers and the Ticat receivers,
yep.
You have White, who had top 3 receiver. Austin Mack, okay, he had just under 1,200.
Yep.
He only had 4 touchdowns, whereas Tim White had 8. Then you bring in Terry Godwin, Tyler Sneed. Then you bring in Philpott and Keandre Smith. The thing that's going to be interesting is how they use the dual threat in James Butler.
Yeah, absolutely. And
then don't forget, you also have Mayala, who used to be an Alouette.
Yep.
You also have, and I know Carter's going to make fun of me for butchering his name, Darrell Walker. That we have Bayless, we have McAllister.
Darrell Walker, yes.
Yeah. So, Turnowski, he was back practicing. So, there's you have those question marks. That's like, I'm actually curious to see what our depth chart is going to be like on Friday when it comes to the receiving core. Because, I mean, it could be anyone.
Yep. Now, one last thing.
Yes.
I only got one more thing, and I'll let you go for a bit, and I think that's pretty much all we'll have afterwards. But one last thing for me is that I saw the CFL put out a poll earlier today about who is the most underrated player in the CFL. I don't know. Did you see this, by the way? This is on Instagram. Who is the most
No, I did not.
underrated player in the CFL? And they gave two options.
Is it who I think it is?
Trey Adams-Dukes.
Person on defense?
And I think the answer is Stavros Katsantonis. I'm a Bomber fan. I absolutely am. But Katsantonis has been fucking fantastic for Hamilton, and not a lot of people have noticed that. Although I know you have. You're a big fan of Katsantonis.
Yes. I think for us, if you add in Thurman, Lawrence, Katsantonis, even your boy Sales from Winnipeg last year.
Yes, sir.
Chris Edwards. I mean, I don't know if Adeleke will be back. Jonathan Kongbo, Laurent, Jagger Davis, the other Davis that came over from Montreal, Mason Bennett. And then you go over to the Montreal side. You have Beverlette. You have Sutton. Najee Murray. You have Sankey. You have Sean Lemon.
Yep.
Like there's and then
you guys got to stop Sean Lemon because he's been able to cause all kinds of problems ever since he's joined the Alouettes.
And then the one last thing that I will say where we come, I just want to pull up the numbers before.
Yep.
I'm saying where I think we have the over on them.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say this, Carter, and I know how much it's gonna make you mad. I'm gonna bring up Mark Legio's name because
it's funny. It doesn't make me mad because if you look at the performances last week, even Mark Legio was perfect, and Cote was 50%. It makes sense. I totally get it. No, although the one thing I will say, the only worry I have with Mark Legio, it was never that he is not capable of being a good kicker. It's that I found that he cracked under the pressure. So that will be an interesting thing to see how Mark Legio manages the pressure and maybe having to make an important kick in a critical spot in the game.
So Legio went 39 for 45 for 86.7%, and his longest was 50. Whereas David Cote went 37 for 48 for 77.1% and longest 51.
Yep. So definitely got the.
I'm throwing the edge on Legio.
Yep. Nope. That's fair.
But to leave that where it is, you already know who I'm picking to win the C's file.
I know who you're picking, and I'm actually going to make that pick as well. I am picking the Hamilton Ticats to defeat the Montreal Alouettes narrowly. When I say narrowly, my pick is that the Montreal Alouettes are going to lose in overtime to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I think it's going to come that close. I can absolutely see Montreal winning this game. I can absolutely see Hamilton winning this game. Obviously, I'm picking them. I think this game is coming down to the thinnest of wires. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see some exciting football. Make sure you guys catch that this Saturday, as well as you make sure you guys catch out our Western semifinal preview coming out very, very soon. It's going to be a great time. Me and Rick still have to record that. We're going to have a great time. We always do, except for when we don't. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Make sure you guys join the Prairie Puck Podcast Discord. Link to that is in the description below, where we talk about hockey, we talk about football, we talk about how Rick sucks, we talk about how I suck, and it's a great time, so make sure you guys join that. Let us know what you guys think of this game coming up in the comment section down below, and we'll see you guys next time.